What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here. Last week, we did a regular fantasy football mock draft. Today, we are doing a Dynasty startup mock. So this one's going to be a lot more intense, a lot more in depth, because we're talking about the entire careers of the players that we're drafting. You excited for it?
Yeah, I am excited. Usually with Dynasty, in my experience, I'm in a few leagues. The one with you, we did a fast draft, but ever since then, I've been in like the slow drafts. So I'm kind of excited to get back in here and have to think fast in a Dynasty context. But for this league, we didn't do kicker, we didn't do defense. We're just doing one quarterback, two running back, three receiver, one tight end, three flex, and then
And
the bench.
we don't know where we're picking yet. So I got the random number generator just hit. Do you want to go first or second?
I'll go first. Get it out
Okay.
of the way.
All right, so you have the fourth pick. That's actually really good.
Okay. I
There
can
you
live with
go.
that.
And then I have the eighth pick. So we're going
All
to
right.
4 and 8, and we're going to get this bad boy started right away. I'm pretty jealous that you have the fourth.
Yeah, let's rip it. You're
So
in
here
there?
we go.
Cool. Let's do it. All right, so 4 kind of went as I expected it to go. I'm a little salty, to be honest. I mean, I knew that Chase and Jefferson weren't going to make it to me, obviously, but they were my top two guys. For me personally, with Dynasty, I like to try and go receiver early just because I feel like the rookie running backs are easier to tell who's going to be good, who's not going to be good. Obviously, nothing's 100%, but sometimes with rookie receivers, it's tough. Like we all know, the Justin Jefferson year, he was going in he was like the fourth receiver, I think. I forget who was all going, but he was like the fourth receiver going in his first round. But I mean, we've talked about this guy a million times. It is kind of funny that I'm going to take him in this one
Yeah,
too.
what?
But
He's the 101. I would be happy as
I
hell.
have to
I
take
would
him.
draft him first in a dynasty startup, to be honest.
Yeah, so I personally would take Chase and Jefferson over him, but Bijan is my three, so you got to take him there.
And I'm in a situation here where, see, with dynasty, I would prefer to stay away from receivers, even though you wouldn't think so based on my dynasty team in our actual league. But in this spot, I'm gonna go with Brees Hall. Got to draft the young running back here first.
I love Brees Hall.
And my strategy failed. I was hoping that since Tyreek's a little bit older, that I was going to snag him there in that spot. But it's looking like it's a dynasty startup. So I don't want to go Saquon as much as I'm tempted to do it just because of the contract situation. He's also a little old. This is also a PPR league. So I'm actually going to roll the dice here and go with Jahmyr Gibbs because I think he's just going to get peppered with targets. I like him a lot, especially from a long-term standpoint. So got Hall and Gibbs to start.
All right, cool. So when I was looking at, when I was looking at your pick, and I was like, who is going to be there for mine, or who could be there for mine? There was two guys I was targeting. They just went. Gibbs was one of them. I like Gibbs. I think that he's going to be good. And then obviously Chris Olave. We've talked about him a couple of times. I really love Chris Olave. So looking around here, this is kind of like a weird spot for me personally. And I feel like this is going to see, the thing with Dynasty is you can't look, 10 years in advance. You kind of got to do like 3 to 5 year windows, or at least you try to. But for me, I still wouldn't take any of the like older studs. Like Diggs is there, Cup is there. I think I'm going to do something a little bit, maybe. I mean, I think you'll like it, but a little bit off the beaten path. I'm actually going to go with DK Metcalf. I love DK. I think his talent is tremendous. I think that he is going to be a stud for years to come. I mean, he's if he ever gets a double digit touchdown season, he's a top 5 receiver. Like he's automatic. Um, I love him, and I love his career moving forward. And now looking at this, I'm actually going to go with a guy who his stock has been, I wouldn't say it's down, but people are kind of like, because they drafted a guy surprisingly. I'm going to go with Kenneth Walker here. I like Charbonnet, so I'm torn on this year, but I think Kenneth Walker is the more talented guy, and I think talent wins out. So I'm going
Very
to start
interesting.
with
You went
two running backs.
you went Walker over ETN,
I did. Yes.
so you're
Because
all in on Seattle.
yes. So with me, I'm okay with stacking in Dynasty, even like running back receiver, because to me, you have them your whole careers. You want to go with talent first and foremost, and then if I ever get lucky enough to where Seattle has a top 5 offense, I have a pretty good chance of winning my league because I have their starting running back and their best receiver. So
So
I don't really shy away from that kind of stuff in Dynasty personally.
okay, I mean, I am regretting going running back, but at the same time, most of the running backs are gone. Um, like you said, not trying to touch the older players. I don't like Devontae Adams' situation in Las Vegas, as they don't even know who their quarterback is going to be. I'm out on Njigba because I agree with you. I do like DK a lot, and I don't necessarily see them being able to support two guys with Geno Smith there. I think Devonta Smith will have a good year this year, not good enough. So I'm going to go with Lamar, the guy that just signed a massive deal, and he can work as another running back for me. Hopefully, is going to get a lot of points. I'm praying that the guy that I wanted to fall to me fell, and he did. So I am going to go with Kyle Pitts here. We're going to really roll the dice strategy, not drafting any receivers, but I think my running backs are good. I'm about to get the number 1 tight end in Dynasty. Yes, Travis Kelce is the number 1 in redraft, but I would say that Pitts is the number 1 in Dynasty. I think he's going to have an amazing year this year. And for startup, I mean, he's only 22 years old, so you can have him for another 10 years. He's going to be a beast.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were targeting Pitts with one of those next 2 picks there. To be quite honest with you, the way the board is falling, and I don't really love sleepers rankings when you do the Dynasty mock draft. They're kind of weird to me, but I'm looking at the board right now, and I truly don't like really anybody at this spot. Like, I'm taking a guy just because I have to, because it's my pick. I would have taken Andrews there. I know he's 27, but I still think he's got at least 5 years of production left in him. So I'm looking at the board. I'm really torn here. There's a couple of guys that
I like a lot of guys in the
board.
next couple rounds. Like, I'm excited to stash up some receivers in the next couple rounds.
Yeah, I agree. The next few rounds is where it starts to get good.
That's why I took Lamar there. If there was a good receiver, I would have gone receiver, but I was forced into taking like the last QB out of that top tier.
All right. So this, I'm going to go with a guy who I know that you and I kind of disagree on, but I think is truly an extremely talented receiver. Went to a small school last year, was productive, even though the team wasn't all that great. I'm actually a big Christian Watson believer, and I'm going to take him here. I think that he's going to be, like I said, I don't know if he's a true alpha receiver in the sense, but I think that he's going to be good for fantasy nonetheless. And we're looking back here again, and I'm thinking there's 2 guys. So my last pick, I was between these 3 guys. The other 2 actually fell right back to me. I'm looking at the running backs, but I like the running back. I got 2 in the first 3 rounds, and I just feel like I don't need to take one here. I feel like it'd be kind of a reach for those guys for me personally. So right now I'm torn between 2 guys. I'm not going to say it just in case because I want to see if you take them or not. I don't think you would. Me personally, we talked about a guy previously who we think is going to end up being a stud in the league, and that's Anthony Richardson. So I'm going to take his number 1 receiver. I'm going to take Michael Pittman here. I think that if Anthony Richardson is as good as I think he's going to be, then Michael Pittman kind of has to be a productive number 1 receiver. I think that if you look at all of his efficiency metrics, he's got the talent. He produces as a receiver. So it's really just getting those consistent targets. Last year was kind of a shit show for the Colts.
So the situation that I'm in right now, I don't have a number 1 receiver. What I'm seeing when I go further down the board is that there's a lot of number 1 receivers that are older. So I think I'm going to hold off on that. I think right now, with the amount of flexes that we have, I think it's worth taking a little bit of a reach on a guy who's a little bit older, but I do want to compete this year. And I think with the upgrades at O-line that the Bengals have made, he's still only 25 years old, still probably has about 4 years in him. I do think that he will get signed. I don't necessarily, I'm not really that high on P. Ryan. I think Chase Brown's good, but not good enough to, take over the load. Don't like Jordan Addison there. So I am going to be going with Joe Mixon here, as I do still want to compete this year. If you look at the rest of the teams, there's a lot that are kind of either in a rebuild or in a compete now. And I was just shitting my pants there because the guy that I wanted to be my wide receiver 1 was about to go, but he didn't. And I'm happy because I think that he's the only wide receiver 1 left, and that's Calvin Ridley. I think with rebuild Jaguars team with Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be the number 1 guy. He's fresh. He hasn't played in a while. Calvin Ridley is going to be a beast this year and for many years to come. He did get signed to a pretty big contract. So I think a lot of people forget that when drafting Calvin Ridley this year. I think that's why he's going so late in Dynasty, is a lot of people don't realize how long that deal actually was. But I like getting him at this point, especially with the roster that I have above him.
Yeah, so looking at the past few picks, I would have had to consider Chris Godwin. He's older, but I think that he's just a truly talented receiver. I'm kind of glad he was selected. And another guy who I would have probably taken was Rachaad White if he fell to me. We're both big Rachaad White guys, especially for this upcoming year. So my hope in that situation is once he proves it this year that they just let him be his own guy. So look, I'm going to try and do some game theory. I feel like it didn't work the last mock draft, and it probably won't work this time. But there is a quarterback who I want right here, but 2 out of the 3 teams that are picking already took a quarterback. So I'm actually going to go with my next tight end, or with my tight end here, Dallas Goedert. I'm an Eagles fan, so maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I think his talent is he's extremely talented, and he's connected with, in my opinion, one of the best quarterbacks in the league. So I'm excited to see that, one of the best offenses. And it did work out for me here on the quarterback front. So like I said, I talked about it earlier. We both love the ceiling of this guy. And if he pans out, I'm trying to call my shot here. If he pans out, I think that this is going to be a great pick. And and this is part of the reason I took Michael Pittman, is I was hoping that I could do this a little later on. I'm going to take Anthony Richardson here and hope that he really does pan out. And I have that stack for the next 5 years.
Yeah, I love your rookie picks. I mean, I would say that you got the 2 best rookies this year, even though I have Gibbs. But I mean, just as far as positional value in Bijan and Anthony Richardson. So that's going to be a great stack moving forward. I don't. Okay, so I'm going to have to put my money where my mouth is here. In our hot take video, I talked a lot about this player, and that's Jameson Williams on the Lions. He was drafted to be the guy. And right now, if I'm not too sold on Amon-Ra St. Brown, and even if you are, they are completely different receivers. So both of them can be productive. I think as the years go on, Jameson's just going to keep evolving. He's going to be a deep threat whenever they do get a different quarterback. And even if it's still Jared Goff, he's shown before when he had Brandon Cooks that he's able to air it out. Jameson Williams will be the pick in this situation here. I'm just taking the shot. This late on in the Dynasty draft, not having a wide receiver 2 is probably dangerous, but I had to roll the dice because I don't want a wide receiver 2. Like you mentioned last time, you play fantasy to win fantasy, not to come in second. So out of all the guys on the board, that's the guy that I thought has the best chance of eventually becoming a wide receiver 1. And in Dynasty, that's what we got to do. And now I'm going to go a little bit safer. Another guy that we both are high on, another offense that we're both high on, another player that's actually still signed to this team for another 2 years with a second-year quarterback in Kenny Pickett. I'm going to go with Deontay Johnson. So starting to like this little wide receiver core that I'm building here to back up all my really secure running backs.
Yeah, I love I had a feeling that you were – so I was actually surprised you didn't go Kadarius Toney. I know you're a Toney guy, but I personally would have taken Johnson ahead of Toney as well.
I mean, I like Toney this year. I think the Chiefs will get a number
real
1
receiver one day.
next year. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I like
I can
Toney a lot
appreciate
this
that.
year, though.
Can I ask you a question? I don't think it's a discussion for some people, but I kind of think they're kind of close. You would take Goddard over Freiermuth too, right? Even with the
Yeah,
round and a half difference of
yeah,
value. Okay,
yeah.
I agree. I rather
Especially
pay
now that they
after
got
Goddard.
Darnell Washington too,
Yeah, no,
and
I
he's going to
agree.
take a lot of the red zone looks. They were already talking about it in camp.
Yeah, so I'm looking at this board right now, and there's like I said, there's really no one who truly stands out to me. Um, I just want to double check over here. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm torn between two players, one at each position. I'm trying to think who I think was more likely to last for me, and the teams picking around are both, pretty even on both positions. So I'm torn between two guys. I'm gonna end up going with the guy who I think is more likely to break out. The other guy has a little more competition, and I'll talk about him later. But I'm gonna go with, and this is probably a little bit of a reach here. They have him as like seventh on the board right now at running back, but I'm gonna go with Roshan. I love Roshan. I think that he's going to win the job by the end of the year. And I think that, they have Foreman, they have Herbert, they have Roshan. I don't think that next year, personally, that they're going to invest in like a high draft pick guy or like a big name free agent. So really, I think he's just going to have to be fighting off the same level like draft pick guys. But I think most drafts, you're not going to find somebody as talented as Roshan as late as the Bears got him. And the other guy that I was talking about didn't end up falling to me. And I think this is going to make you a little bit upset, but I'm going to take, I don't know if you were planning on doing this anyway, but I'm going to take Rashad Bateman. I like Zay Flowers, but I've always liked Rashad Bateman. The only thing that really scares me is he's been injured a couple times already. But I think talent wise, to me personally, I think that he and Zay Flowers, one of them is going to break out and be good this year. And I think that even if Bateman stays, he's with Lamar Jackson, and then I think that he's going to have a solid year. Hopefully, he gets some money in free agency if he does end up leaving, and he can find a new home where he's looked at as the number one receiver again. Because I mean, you saw it last year.
Yeah.
Before he
No,
got
I
hurt,
love
he was
that
a
pick.
stud.
I absolutely love that pick. Honestly, I didn't realize that he was on the board. I would have taken him over I would have taken him over Jameson Williams and Deontay Johnson. Honestly, I just didn't think he would still be on the board there. I think Rashad Bateman's an absolute stud, and that's a phenomenal steal to get him where he did. I am going to go with a guy who I'm high on this year and still has a year or two left on his contract. And like I said, I have two very young running backs. I have Hall and Gibbs that are going to be tied to their teams for a long time. I have Mixon. I also want someone to be really good and compete with this year. And I think that with Eric Bieniemy there now in Washington, Antonio Gibson is a lock for a top 20 running back. I think he's going to be top 15. The consensus rankings have him outside the top 30, which I think is ridiculous. But I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson, especially in a PPR league. He's going to be a monster. He might even outperform a couple of the receivers that I've drafted him. I'm praying that one player makes it to me, even though he is a big reach at this spot. So looking at the receivers, Juju's horrible. Gabe Davis is a 2. Rashee Rice, I don't think he's going to be that good. Elijah Moore is a 3. Josh Towns might not see the field. Brandon Cooks is good, but he's old. And I'm going to go with Courtland Sutton here. I just recently traded for him in our Dynasty League. Still has 2 years left on his contract. Like I said, I am still trying to have some win now players. I think that Russell Wilson improves. I think the whole offense as a whole improves. And if Sean Payton can make Courtland Sutton, play X the way that Michael Thomas played X, he's going to have a great year this year. Love Sutton this year and like him over the next 2 years. So I think he's a steal at that spot, especially after just naming the other receivers around him.
Yeah. One thing that I do want to point out is, and I don't think that this would happen in most real leagues personally, Dak just went, what is that, 9-11, right? Yeah. He went at the 9-11. I think that was a great pick. I just feel like in most leagues he wouldn't last that long. So for me, looking at the board, there's a few guys that I like here. Again, it's kind of like calling your shot down here. So I'm looking, and I'm going to go with a guy who I think is more of a this year player as well, but I think could potentially, if he stays with this team, if he has a decent year, but he's not trying to cash out, I think he could have a successful career with this team. I'm going to go with, hold on one second, I just want to double check one thing. Okay, yeah. I'm going to go with Rashad Penny, and this is more of a this year play. I think that he has, he could go on a stretch run where he is amazing and could potentially win you a championship. He did it a few years ago. That offense, he's just got so much talent. When he's healthy, that's the biggest thing. He's got talent. So you just got to hope he stays healthy. The next pick, I'm going to go with Sky Moore. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, and I think taking a poke at him at one of his receivers, I think is going to be a big thing or a good thing. I think that I do think Sky Moore is going to be the one who ends up winning out. I know he didn't have a great year last year, but he went to a smaller school and he's been working out with Mahomes all offseason. They both live in Dallas, so I think that connection is going to be a lot better this year and moving forward.
Yeah, I actually like Moore going forward as well. Right now, I'm looking and I'm trying to see. Now that I took Sutton and Gibson with my last go around, now I'm a little bit swinging more for the fences here. As far as a future outlook, I'm looking at the guys on the board right now, specifically at wide receiver. I think I have enough running backs for now, and I don't see anyone who's really speaking to me. And I'm trying to see which one of these guys can become a number one. Michael Thomas was in the past. He's not going to do it again. Darnell Mooney, he's not going to beat out DJ Moore and maybe not even Claypool if Claypool can step it up. Jaden Reed, no shot. Alan Lazard, no shot. Odell Beckham, no shot. Jalen Hyatt, although I didn't like his production in college that much, I don't like his tape that much, but I do like his situation as the number one receiver with the Giants. If Daniel Jones can actually be the guy that they paid him to be, I like the future outlook for Hyatt just situationally. Also, you might as well take your shot on the guy who was drafted pretty high by them. Next up, I'm going to go with a guy who I don't think a lot of people realize is the perfect complement to the quarterback that you drafted earlier in college. Anthony Richardson's number one receiver was another deep threat, very similar profile in Ricky Pearsall, is Alec Pierce, actually, who had a decent season last year, although the quarterback play was really bad in Indianapolis. And I think that it's just going to get much better with Anthony Richardson. I was considering Mechie there, but long-term, I think that Pierce and Richardson are just going to have such a great connection.
All right, so when I heard you say that, I got hyped because I wanted John Mechie, and he ends up going the pick before me anyway, so that kind of sucks. I'm going to go with another guy who I think that, injuries have kind of plagued him. He's just had a weird career so far, but I think that he's got all the talent in the world. Not to ever be a number one receiver, but I like the situation that he's in. I don't think there's really a true number one on that team anymore. I'm going to go with Rondale Moore. I think that he's really talented. And again, for me, I try and go with guys who I believe in the talent above all. And I really think that he's going to be a contributor this year. And hopefully, like I said, you do it once. Hopefully the team starts to trust in you.
He's still young enough to keep going.
Oh, exactly. He's still, what's he? I think he's like 24 or something like that. But he's extremely young. I think that he's gonna find a way to be productive this year. And then this pick right here, I'm looking at a couple guys. There's one guy I feel like I should take because I feel like you might take him. But if you do, whatever. I'm actually gonna go with Luke Musgrave. I really like Luke Musgrave. I think that he's an athletic freak. I know that I have Christian Watson already, but I think that if Jordan Love pans out, that's really the shot that I'm taking. If Jordan Love is just a half-decent quarterback, then I think that he can have two productive pieces. So I'm hoping that those pieces are Watson and Musgrave.
So now I'm intrigued to find out what player you thought I was going to draft. I was hoping that Devin Singletary would fall to me. I love him this year. I'll talk about him in our sleepers video. I'm just going to see if there's any running backs worth note. At this point, there really doesn't look like there's any receivers. Like I said, at this point, I'm swinging for the fences. Yeah, they're all horrendous. Everyone's pretty crap at this point. Yeah, so we're gonna go a little bit of a stretch here, but Keyshawn Boutte, I just don't want to see him get taken by anyone else.
That's exactly
just going
who I
for
was
the
talking
potential. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Just for the wide receiver one potential. I think that the Patriots are going to be really, really bad this year. And that next year they get a really good quarterback. So I love Boutte's profile as a freshman and sophomore. He was great in college. And then he definitely went downhill after that. But it was mostly due to character concerns and injury. So we'll see if the Patriots can bring him back to life. The running back that I wanted to fall to me was taken. That was Zach Evans. Don't see much here. So at this point, I think I'm going to go way more with trade bait in this scenario. And we've been talking about him a lot. But I'm going to go with Jordan Love just in case he does actually turn out to be good. I have Lamar, so I'm probably never going to need him. But if he does end up being really good, especially because this is a dynasty league, next year I can trade him for a piece and maybe potentially get that number one receiver that my team's currently missing.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that pick at all. I think I'm a little bit more of a believer in Jordan Love than you are. I think that he's going to be solid and that he's going to be their quarterback for the next few years.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a good strategy to mention though too is like if you have a stud at one position and you don't think that you need a player, but he's better than everyone else that's on the board, why not take him if you're thinking about trading him in the future, especially in Dynasty? That's like a completely different situation than you'd ever run into in redraft.
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. So I'm going to go with a guy. I'm actually going to go with a veteran here, but it's at the quarterback position. So, they can play pretty much as long as they want to nowadays. But I think he's still got a few more years left in him. And I went with the high upside guy in Anthony Richardson. I know that this guy had a rough year last year, but I think that they're going to turn it around as a team and he's going to turn it around. I'm going to take Russell Wilson with my pick here. I think that he really, he just had a bad year. And, you can't fully discount that. You could say that it's the cliff. You could say that it's the decrease in weapons. But I think that Sean Payton coming to the team is going to help him out a lot. And I think that kind of getting a sense of normalcy where, no, you don't run the show, I think is going to, let him know that he's a part of a team. It's not the Denver Wilsons. It's the Denver Broncos. I think that he kind of got in his head a little bit last year. So this guy, I'm going to scroll a little bit down because I feel like you would take him. I'm going to hope my other guy stays on the board. I'm actually going to go with Terrace Marshall. Obviously, he wasn't good last year. I think Bryce Young is going to be a solid quarterback in the NFL. And I also think that Terrace Marshall was good enough to get taken in the second round. He was productive on that LSU championship team, even though there was studs there. So I'm just hoping that his high school and earlier college play comes back to effect and that hopefully maybe Bryce Young gets a good connection going with him.
Yeah, no, I like the pick. I mean, he probably is the most talented receiver on the team at the moment. Adam Thielen will be that guy, maybe one or two games, but you never know how many he's actually going to play at this age. So I do like Marshall. Next guy I'm going after, I can't believe after how good of a season that he had, he's going this low in dynasty drafts. Maybe just because of the public's love and trust for Mark Andrews, but Isaiah Likely was utilized so much last year, flashed so much talent. He's an athletic freak. I think a perfect backup to Pitts and to combine with Lamar, who I drafted earlier on. And now in this last pick, my Mr. Irrelevant, I'm just going to try and go for someone that I think will provide some guaranteed work, and I can't believe that he's this far down on the board. And that's right now the number 2 receiver on the Los Angeles Rams. I know that everyone's thinking they're going to be abysmal. I personally think that they'll probably be like a 7, 8, or even a 9-win team this year. I think the offense bounces back. Allen Robinson is gone now. So that leaves the door wide open for Van Jefferson, who's still only in his 3rd year, to come in and get some work. So I can't believe he's that deep right now.
Yeah, I can't blame you on that pick. I mean, last year he was just hurt, and it really derailed his season. And obviously, by the time he got any playing time, Stafford was gone. The first 3 strings of every offensive lineman was gone. Cup was gone. So it was just a weird season for the Rams last year. And like you said, I think that they will bounce back a little bit. I don't know how I feel about Jefferson long term per se. I mean, he's not like too old or anything like that. I just think that I think Cup is going to be the number 1, until the end of his career. I think his game could age so that he'll still be half decently productive for a few more years. And I could see them trying to replace.
I don't think
replace Van Jefferson.
I don't think at the 16th round though I'm going for a wide receiver 1.
No. Trust me, it's worth definitely taking a poke at, especially if they are good this year, some upside for them. And my last pick here, I'm gonna kind of go for a Hail Mary. I am not, and I know it's going to sound crazy because he's been pretty efficient when he's gotten the touches. I'm not the biggest Alexander Madison fan. I think that now that Dalvin Cook is completely gone, and it's not just Cook went out, we're gonna force feed him. I think that now they're gonna have time to game plan for it. I'm hoping that the guy who I personally think is the better talent wins out. Now there's 2 of them that I like, so that's the scary thing. I'm just gonna take my shot on one. I'm gonna go with Ty Chandler. When he was at North Carolina, he was really good, and he's a good runner and he's a good pass catcher. And I think that, and they've already come out with reports. It was either the run game coordinator or the offensive coordinator said, "Is Ty Chandler going to be getting more touches, or is he ready for more touches?" And the quote was, "Well, he's going to have to be." So I think that if he's getting the touches, I think that the talent will win out. I like McBride too. He just can't really catch the ball at all. He showed none of that. So I'm going to go with the guy who I think could potentially, best case scenario, could be an all-purpose back.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty surprising to pick him over McBride, but after hearing a breakdown of it, it makes more sense. So we're going to run down our teams and then comment below who you think has the better Dynasty startup roster. So you might as well run yours down first since you went first.
All right. So you just want to go order 1 through?
Yeah.
Or we'll do by visit. All right, cool. All right. So Bijan Robinson, I'll tell you how I feel about every pick too. So Bijan Robinson, happy. I'll tell you when I'm not happy. That'll be easier. Bijan Robinson, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Christian Watson, Michael Pittman, Dallas Goedert, Anthony Richardson, Rashad Bateman, Rashad Penny, Sky Moore, Rondale Moore, Luke Musgrave, Russell Wilson, Terrace Marshall, and Ty Chandler. I think hindsight being 2020, I'm pretty happy with my draft overall. There's a couple of guys who like Richardson. I think I would have, even though I think that he's got the upside, I think that Dak is a stud. So I would have waited, another 2 rounds and taken Dak. But other than that, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, I think your team is very, very well balanced. I would say I love every single pick but Watson, Pittman. But I mean, value-wise, you can't necessarily argue Pittman at that point. I think that he was clearly the best receiver available at that point. And then on my side, I have Breece Hall, Jahmyr Gibbs, Lamar Jackson, Kyle Pitts, Joe Mixon, Calvin Ridley, Jamison Williams, Deontay Johnson, Antonio Gibson, Cortland Sutton, Jalen Hyatt, Alec Pierce, Kayshon Boutte, Jordan Love, Isaiah Likely, and Van Jefferson. I would say I'm very, very happy with my running backs. I think that they're ridiculous. They'll probably always be the ones in the starting lineup getting Hall and Gibbs, they're going to be cornerstones for the next 10 years. Mixon's probably going to be the best out of all these guys for this year. Gibson has top 10 potential this year, top 15, I would think is more likely. I don't like that I don't have a number one receiver. I'm always a guy that likes to have number one receivers. Calvin Ridley, though, does have the chance to be the number one. And also just looking at how I started the draft, and I think if I was maybe like the 6th pick or the 5th pick, then I would have picked receivers. But at the time, like at the beginning, I wasn't going to pick A.J. Brown or Jalen Waddle over Breece Hall. And then when it came time for Gibbs, I wasn't going to take Amon-Ra or Olave. And then when it came the time for Jackson, I wasn't going to take Devontae Adams. Like, it was just every time that I could have gone receiver, it was a player that I didn't really want. So I was forced to not take any receivers. In the last draft we did, I went more receiver heavy. This time went more running back heavy. But we'll see. With Dynasty, you never know right away. That's the great thing with it.
Yeah,
But
for
we
not
will
getting
catch-
a running or a receiver until the 6th round, I think your receivers actually turned out to be pretty nice. You have a good mix of guys who are kind of on the safer side, not as much upside, like Deontay Johnson, and then you have those guys who could be great, like Jamison Williams, in the future, Hyatt, if he develops, those high upside guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I love your stretch with Richardson through Bateman. I think that those 4 are amazing, and then even getting Sky Moore, Rashad Penny, all impact players for this year. So, yeah, I think we both had pretty solid drafts. I think Team 5. Looking at Team 5, they had a pretty cool draft. Other than J.K. Dobbins, I like that auto pick. I think better than the rest of them around there. But yeah, just comment below and make sure to stay subscribed. Next week we're going to be doing our fantasy football My Guys in our podcast, so we'll catch y'all there. Peace.